some contemporary thinkers on Western guys who are talking about spirituality. Basically, she said that most of her time is going to be spent on Eckhart Tolle. This is a very, very famous guy. Like, as time is passing by, he's becoming more and more mainstream, more famous. He wrote 2 or 3 books. His first book was called The Power of Now. So it means the power of present moment. And it's basically very similar to, he writes about the present moment in this sort of Zen manner. And about himself, he had this personal mystical experience where he lost consciousness, and for the next day he woke up, he felt like he was in the present moment all the time, and he spent the first 5-6 years of his life just sitting on a bench and doing nothing. And he said that those 5 years were the best years ever of his life. And then people started gathering around him, and so he became a speaker of a sort. So his first book was basically questions and answers. And then the next book was about, it's called New Earth, and it talks about, again, about how to enter this present moment. And Oprah actually invited him on her show, and she was so startled by, she loved the materials and him and the guy so much, so they opened like an online 2 weeks or 2 months course for every chapter of his second book, where people could join on Skype and ask questions and get answers interactively. So I'll just let Lynn speak about the details.
Thanks, that was great. That fills in all the spots that I'm not going to mention. Excellent. Okay, thanks for all of you for coming, and I'd like to thank the directors Ethan and Alex and Engel for doing a great introduction. Okay, I'd like to mention a few other authors just briefly, because those at the end, if I answer some questions, I might be talking about them as well, or some of my answers might come from them. Those are Neil John Walsh. He wrote Conversations with God, books 1, 2, 3, and there's a 4th one out now. Jiddu Krishnamurti, who I read extensively when I was at the end of high school. I had a small novel version. This is a photocopy because my book was falling apart. And Eckhart Tolle, I don't have The Power of Now, I just have a New Earth that my friend lent me because I listened to the audio tape. And Deepak Chopra, which is all on audio, he wrote A Book of Health and The Way of the Wizard, which I have on audio as well. I pretty much listen to everything on audio because I'm doing something else. I'm usually pretty busy, I'm going to work or whatnot, listening to it. So it's easier than, I have enough time to do that, otherwise I don't have enough time to sit down and read. Okay, who are these men? Well, they're teachers as well as philosophers. They give you their ideas and directions on how to gain enlightenment. They both agree and complement each other. Agree with and complement each other. Yet they approach the subject of enlightenment from different angles, each with their own target audience in mind, addressing various stages of development towards that goal. For example, they all believe that life is an illusion, and they all agree that we are all one. And they all teach that inner stillness is the answer to true self-realization or enlightenment. Jiddu Krishnamurti points out how our education system is flawed, and how many of us in society have become dull, lifeless machines. He advocates inner stillness and asks his audience if anyone has ever tried to really listen to the river, or a breeze, or the distant sounds in the world. He encourages people to go out and try these things for themselves. However, Krishnamurti's writings sometimes, for many people, come across as difficult or vague, so a lot of people don't get into it. Neil John Walsh, the one who wrote Conversations with God, targets a Christian group, and he points out how most ideas taught through the Christian doctrine simply make no sense. He demonstrates the logic behind his way of thinking and challenges you to think otherwise. Deepak Chopra, who I don't have a book here to show you, but he's a medical doctor who approaches enlightenment from a scientific point of view. He teaches us what we're capable of, and although I think he's excellent, he hasn't given me enough do-it-yourself instructions, except with his book on yoga, which I heard is very good, that I haven't read. His angle seems more suited to connect to those who are skeptical and maybe not interested in method because they haven't yet reached that path along enlightenment. Eckhart Tolle, on the other hand, takes a contrasting approach to Deepak Chopra. His book, The Power of Now, is written with very direct instructions on how to reach enlightenment, and his teachings are accompanied every step of the way by a do-it-yourself guide to enlightenment, pretty much. I prefer this directness. For me, it works really well, so I listen to his audio tapes the most, and it's his work that I know the best. And so therefore, I'm going to talk about Eckhart Tolle tonight. Okay, Eckhart Tolle's belief. Number one, the introduction. Eckhart Tolle believes that our world is ready for a new evolutionary stage of development. This new stage is one of consciousness and of waking up. In other words, enlightenment. He believes that our egoic mind keeps us from reaching this goal. There are 3 states of consciousness that are used throughout Eckhart Tolle's work. He simply calls consciousness, or being conscious. This is enlightenment, our true state of being. The other is unconsciousness. This is the state where our egoic mind runs our life. Almost everyone lives in this state, he says. The third is below consciousness, and this is a state such as sleep, where we're not awake at all, and our mind has been shut down temporarily. Number 2, enlightenment defined. Eckhart Tolle asks, what is enlightenment? He says that most people think that enlightenment is a superhuman accomplishment reserved only for the Buddha or great masters. But enlightenment is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that is you but is much greater than you. It is finding your true nature beyond name and form. Name is when you say, I am John Smith, I was born in New York City, I am recently retired from my work for the New York Times, I have 2 children who are now both married, I have 1 grandchild, etc. This is your identity in the world of form. Form is the world that you see around you. It's a world that, according to all the philosophers I have mentioned, is just an illusion. This world has been agreed upon and is maintained by us. Form is the world. Eckhart Tolle says that who we are in name in this world of forms is just an idea that is conditioned by our past. Only the peripheral world of forms, only in this peripheral world of forms are you this identity. In reality, you are much, much greater than that. Tolle, as well as other philosophers I've mentioned, say that to regain awareness of who you really are, you must abide in a state of pure being. So what is being? Tolle says that being is the eternal, ever-present, one life beyond the myriad forms of life that are subject to birth and death. However, being is not only beyond, but also deep within every form, as its innermost, indestructible essence. This means it is accessible to you now, as your own deepest self, your true nature. But you can only know it when the mind is still. Only when you are intensely present can being be felt. Tolle is careful not to call this innermost indestructible essence the soul. But Neil John Walsh uses that term in his work because his target audience is Christian, and they have accepted the idea of a soul. Eckhart Tolle uses words that are connected to religious ideologies very, very sparingly, so as not to put off people who have already applied certain values to these words. Eckhart Tolle says that the inability to feel this connectedness to all that is around us gives rise to the illusion of separation from yourself and the world around you. You see yourself as an isolated fragment. You are then subject to becoming worried, fearful, angry, or anxious. Conflict within and without becomes the norm. Number 3, what's the way to enlightenment? Entering the now is the way to enlightenment. How does one enter enlightenment? Asked Tolle. Tolle says that the key to enlightenment is the elimination of time. Understand that there is no time. There is only the now. The now is presence. Being totally present and aware with no thoughts in our heads to distract us from the awareness is now. Nothing exists in time except for the now. There is no time that is not now. The past is just a memory